Part 4, Stage 3, Production, the test of fluency and communicative competence. The final and most important stage, Production, P3, shifts the pedagogical focus entirely from accuracy to fluency and communicative success. Here, the objective is to move the student out of the safe, constrained environment of the drill and into a complex, realistic communicative task where the target language is simply one tool available for use. This stage is the ultimate measure of whether the new knowledge has truly transitioned into a usable skill, whether the declarative knowledge of P1 has become automatic procedural skill. The hallmark of the production stage is task-based activity. Unlike the exercises of P2, P3 tasks require the student to achieve a non-linguistic, real-world outcome, forcing them to draw upon all their linguistic resources, including the recently practiced TL item. Examples include simulations, role plays, debates, presentations, collaborative problem-solving tasks, or short interviews. For a lesson focused on vocabulary related to environmental policy, the production task might be a structured debate on banning plastic bags, where students are given roles, e.g., local business owner, environmental activist, and must argue their position. The success of this task is determined by whether the participants successfully communicate their argument, persuade their peers, and fulfill the conditions of the role play, not merely how many times they use the target vocabulary. Linguistically, the production stage aligns strongly with Swain's output hypothesis, which posits that pushing learners to produce language, especially in complex, meaning-focused tasks, is critical because it forces them to notice the gaps in their own knowledge, a process known as noticing the gap. When students attempt to express a complex idea and fail, the attempt forces a mental comparison between the intended message and their current linguistic repertoire, highlighting where the recently taught TL is needed or where their existing knowledge breaks down. This moment of productive struggle is highly effective for deepening internalization. The teacher's role in production is one of facilitator and monitor, not primary corrector. Immediate error correction, which was mandatory in P2, is now actively avoided, as interrupting the flow of conversation would undermine the fluency goal. Instead, the teacher employs delayed error correction. While monitoring the groups, the teacher takes notes on persistent errors, especially errors related to the target language item, without interrupting the students. Once the communicative task is complete, the teacher leads a post-task feedback session, compiling the common errors on the board, often anonymously, and guiding the students through a collaborative correction process. This delayed, focused feedback is far more valuable than interruptions, as it allows the learner to experience the success of communication first, reinforcing motivation before returning to the necessary focus on accurate form. This stage is where language shifts from being an object of study to a tool for authentic interaction. Art 5, Pedagogical Strengths and Applications Across Disciplines. The enduring appeal of the PPP model for grammar and vocabulary instruction stems from its inherent pedagogical strengths, which offer a clear, structured blueprint highly valued in diverse educational contexts, particularly in large-scale language programs. Its greatest advantage is simplicity and transparency. It provides a reliable, easy-to-understand structure for both novice and experienced teachers, ensuring that lessons, regardless of the target item, follow a predictable, scaffolded path. This high degree of structure reduces planning variability and contributes significantly to quality assurance across an institution. For grammar application, PPP is particularly powerful because it allows for the necessary explicit teaching of form. Many complex grammatical structures, such as reported speech or relative clauses, are simply too complex to be reliably acquired through implicit exposure alone. PPP provides the dedicated space, P1, to analyze the rules of function and transformation, followed by the focused, high-repetition practice, P2, necessary to engrave those structural manipulations into muscle memory. This is critical for moving students past a mere understanding of the rule to a consistent ability to apply it under pressure. For vocabulary application, PPP ensures depth of knowledge beyond simple definition. P1 introduces the word's meaning, but crucially, it can also introduce its collocations, words that naturally accompany it, for example, heavy traffic, not big traffic, and its register, for example, commence versus start. P2 then requires students to use the new vocabulary within specific, grammatically constrained sentence frames, ensuring the form and context are accurate. P3 tasks, such as negotiation or problem solving, compel students to use the vocabulary functionally to convey meaning, achieving a much deeper, multifaceted internalization than simple flashcard memorization ever could. The linear, safety-first approach of PPP ensures that both grammar and vocabulary are acquired with an initial emphasis on accuracy, making the scaffold a highly reliable framework for managing the learning journey from zero exposure to independent use. Part 6. Critiques and the necessary evolution of the PPP model. Despite its robust structure, the PPP model is not without its significant and valid critiques. The main philosophical challenge rests on its strict linearity and the implicit assumption that learning always progresses neatly from explicit knowledge to automatic output. Critics argue that this linear ABC progression, where the activity A inevitably leads to competence C, is often an artificial construction, one that does not accurately reflect the organic, messy, recursive nature of natural language acquisition. Learners rarely, if ever, move straight from a discrete grammar drill to error-free, spontaneous use of that item. Instead, acquisition is cyclical, marked by plateaus, backsliding, and the constant retesting of linguistic hypotheses. This adherence to an overly rigid sequence is often termed the A to C fallacy. Linguistically, the PPP model is often criticized for neglecting the principle of discovery learning. By giving the rule explicitly in the presentation stage, the model removes the cognitive work involved in noticing patterns and generating rules inductively. Many pedagogical experts now champion the idea that when learners are forced to struggle with input, perhaps by encountering the TL multiple times in context without explicit instruction, and deduce the rule themselves, the resulting understanding is deeper and more durable. This critique has led to the development of alternative models that invert the sequence or place the production task at the beginning. Two prominent variations illustrate this necessary evolution. The task-based language teaching, TBLT model, rejects the idea of a pre-selected grammar point dominating the lesson. Instead, the lesson begins with a complex, communicative task, the production stage. Students attempt the task, which invariably reveals their linguistic gaps. The teacher then focuses the subsequent lesson on the emergent language needs revealed by the student's errors. This is a much more organic, bottom-up approach. A second highly practical modification is the test-teach-test (TTT) model, which effectively inverts the P1 and P2 stages. The lesson begins with a communicative diagnostic, Test 1 production, which immediately establishes the student's current ability to use the target language. A teacher then uses the data from the errors to deliver a targeted, needs-based presentation, practice, teach, and the lesson concludes with a final, similar communicative task, Test 2 production, to measure the immediate learning gain. TTT maintains the structure of PPP, but ensures that the explicit teaching is truly relevant, addressing only the gaps that the students actually demonstrated. The expert teacher, therefore, views PPP not as an absolute dogma, but as a foundational pedagogical tool. It is a reliable scaffold for introducing new and complex items, especially in low-level classes, where a clear structure is reassuring. However, it must be used flexibly, often blending with elements of TBLT or TTT to ensure that instruction remains responsive to learner needs, and that the ultimate goal of authentic, communicative competence is prioritized over the mere production of accurate, decontextualized forms. The lesson plan must evolve, but the core PPP principle, the measured, systematic movement from controlled knowledge to spontaneous skill, remains a powerful guiding force in language education. The presentation, practice, production model is a cornerstone of language pedagogy, representing a structured, psycholinguistically sound approach to moving students from conscious awareness of a language item to its automatic, fluent use. Its strength lies in its meticulous scaffolding. P1 manages cognitive load by providing clarity and context. P2 builds accuracy through essential repetition and controlled manipulation. And P3 validates the entire process by demanding autonomous, meaning-focused production. While critiques concerning its linearity are valid, and modern methodologies like TBLT offer more organic alternatives, PPP retains immense value as a foundational teaching tool. For the professional educator, the effective deployment of PPP is not about blindly following 3 steps, but about understanding the linguistic purpose of each stage, managing input in P1, correcting form in P2, and prioritizing communication in P3. By applying this understanding with flexibility and responsiveness, teachers harness the power of PPP to effectively bridge the challenging gap between knowing a grammar rule and using it confidently and accurately in the complex, real-world flow of authentic American English communication.